eyes and you're gonna spread your bottom lips on the door, almost so your mouth is in the shape of a triangle. How you doing?
Despite how silly or frivolous her takes were regarding celebrity gossip, you could tell she took the questions of the studio audience seriously during her Ask Wendy segment, when they'd ask for advice regarding their personal hardships. Wendy had just completed her 13th season of The Wendy Williams Show. Wendy fans began to notice some changes in Wendy in the way she engaged with the show. However, I believe most were hopeful that the show would return. Before we knew it, The Wendy Williams Show was not returning to air. There were rumours and hopes of a podcast which did not materialise. Images of Wendy were taken out and about on the street, where symptoms of her numerous health conditions were prevalent. Yet to most she looked unwell, confused, and because of her history with drug use, was considered by some to have returned to using drugs again. I think it's important that we think about everything that Wendy was dealing with when the documentary was being filmed. So, the documentary was filmed in 2022 after she was placed under financial conservatorship. According to People, Williams moved out of the apartment and has been in a treatment facility since sometime last year, and we do see that in the documentary. The different health conditions that Wendy's dealing with whilst this documentary is being filmed include lymphedema, Graves' disease, hypothyroidism. Wendy is dealing with quite a lot of difficult mental and physical health conditions whilst this documentary is being filmed, and I can only, I think for any person with a heart whilst you're watching this, you can only come at this from a place of compassion, because you can see that she's not well, and there are so many moments during filming where it feels unethical to be watching. It feels inappropriate, like, should I really be watching this? And I was really in two minds about watching the documentary, because I could see, even just from the clips on YouTube, that she wasn't okay whilst it was being filmed. But I thought, you know what, I think as a psychologist, I was really interested in taking a psychological perspective when watching the show, and thinking, you know what, this is an opportunity to watch something that, maybe I don't fully agree with the ethics behind. I don't know if I do. But at the same time, it can be a teaching moment for people when we're thinking about everything she was dealing with. So if I just have a look at my notes here, I can see that she was dealing with lymphedema, Graves' disease, hypothyroidism, grief after the loss of her mother, alcoholism, and alcohol-induced dementia, as well as having separated from her husband, the father of her child. Her child is now a man, but the father of her child. And I just thinking about everything that she was dealing with and had dealt with and had gone through, and yet was continuing to be filmed and was having moments where she was displaying symptoms of difficulty. It was really sad to watch. It was really, really sad to watch.
Right now, she's weak and vulnerable, and she needs to be around people who aren't going to take advantage of that. I have no friends.
Now let's take a look. If you think about this from a psychological perspective, I can't really comment on her physical health symptoms or her physical health, but one of the symptoms of Graves' disease is an immune system disorder, and that results in the overproduction of thyroid hormones. And what you see with that condition is much of what you see from Wendy during the documentary, in terms of the way Wendy's eyes look sometimes, is similar to what is described in terms of some of the symptoms of Graves' disease, which is the eyelids retracting, bulging eyes, and redness in the eyes. When we are seeing Wendy with her bulging eyes and those symptoms, it's because of her physical health conditions. Well, what's alcohol-related dementia? So alcohol-related dementia is a type of alcohol-related brain damage, and if a person has alcohol-related dementia, they will struggle with day-to-day tasks. This is because of the damage to their brain caused by regularly drinking too much alcohol over the years. The person may have memory loss and difficulty thinking things through. They may have problems with more complex tasks, such as managing their finances. I think it's actually really sad that Wendy is going through this experience where her dementia is linked to her alcohol usage, because I imagine that it's also difficult for her to rationalise at times maybe why she shouldn't be drinking or why she shouldn't be going to certain places. Like she was just taken on a plane to another part of the US to a meeting that she shouldn't have been in by this person that was employed by her, and it was quite evident that this person was quite keen to become Wendy's manager. And I think that was really sad to see, because I thought, you can see this woman is vulnerable and yet you're still taking her across the country into this meeting. And I think from a human perspective, I just found that really frustrating. But also as a psychologist, like, this person needs people around her that have her best interests at heart. And in my opinion, okay, I'm not a lawyer, but I can see, and I believe I have fairly sound judgment. And someone who is under a guardianship should not have somehow ended up across the country on a plane. That guardianship is not effective, and how that person needs to be looked after, that's not happening. Let's look into dementia. So what are the symptoms of dementia, and was this evident in Wendy during the show? And I want your opinions on this as well. Like, as I go through these symptoms, I want you to tell me what you think. Do you think it was evident that Wendy was experiencing dementia? So let's describe what it is. So, it's normal for, over time, your memory to be affected by stress, tiredness, certain illnesses and medicines. But if you're becoming increasingly forgetful, particularly if you're over the age of 65, the NHS recommend talking to your GP about early signs of dementia. And it's important to recognise that dementia is not only linked to memory loss, but it also affects the way a person thinks, the way they feel, the way they speak, and the way that they choose to behave. So dementia symptoms may include problems with memory loss, thinking speed, mental sharpness and quickness, language, such as using words incorrectly or trouble speaking, understanding, judgment, mood, movement, and difficulties doing daily activities. They also say that people may find social situations difficult and lose interest in relationships and socializing. They may lose empathy, therefore like understanding and compassion. They may see or hear things that other people do not. They can lose the ability to remember events or not fully understand their environment or situations. It can seem as if they're not telling the truth sometimes, or are willfully ignoring problems. They may find planning and organising difficult, and maintaining their independence may also become a problem. A person with dementia will usually need help from friends or relatives, including help with decision making. And you can see in the docuseries that her family, especially in the throughout actually, are quite upset that they've not been included in the decision making around her dementia and her support, and why they're not part of that guardianship. There is no cure for dementia at the moment. An early diagnosis means its progress can be slowed in some cases, so the person may be able to maintain their mental function for longer. A diagnosis helps people with dementia get the right treatment and support, and it can help them and the people close to them to prepare for the future. With treatment and support, people are able to lead active, fulfilled lives with dementia. In the UK specifically, I know she's in America, but the NHS is a UK organisation. 1 in 11 people over the age of 65 have dementia in the UK. And research shows that there are more than 944,000 people in the UK who have dementia, which is a lot of people. The number of people with dementia is increasing because people are living longer. It's estimated by 2030 the number of people with dementia in the UK will be more than 1 million. So, and her son does say at the end of, I think it's the last episode of the docuseries, that his mum has alcohol-induced dementia, and that was a diagnosis that she was given, and that he made the rest of the family aware of it. I think also, we see lots of behaviours in Wendy that don't remind me of how Wendy used to present when she was on camera.
But this is a full circle moment, everybody.
Yes.
Get into adult conversation.
Like, if you look at interviews from, 10 years ago, or, when she was a guest on other talk shows such as Ellen, or when she was hosting the show around that time too, her personality, the way she comes across, the way she communicates seems quite different. Whereas in the show, towards the end, especially the last episode or the last few episodes, people started to notice things in her behaviour and the way that she was coming across that was concerning. I think that was concerning for fans. So some of the early signs of dementia, according to the NHS, include mood changes, being confused about time and place, struggling to follow a conversation or find the right word, finding it hard to carry out familiar daily tasks, difficulty concentrating and memory loss. And I think throughout the docu-series we see different examples of this when it comes to Wendy. You know, she seems to be quite abrupt and confronting with some of the staff in episode 1, including the nail technician or the lady who's helping decide her outfit. I don't know if that was her stylist, and I don't know if that was typical of Wendy. It's not the impression I would have gotten that she would have been prior, especially with cameras rolling, but I don't know that, and I've not seen any other kind of series about Wendy where I would have thought that would have been typical of Wendy, but I don't know if any of you guys know, so let me know in the comments what you thought about that. I was just confused throughout the entire documentary. I was like, why isn't anyone calling a doctor? Why isn't anyone calling any kind of healthcare professional to help this woman? This poor woman who is clearly not okay. And like when they go to get her, I think they're going to get her a vape. I don't know if that was episode 2 or episode 1, but she says to the driver, drive past where the Wendy show is, drive past where it used to be. And he's like, we've already done that. And she's like, do it again. And she's just becoming like increasingly upset, increasingly distressed. She's not really making sense anymore. The camera crew are clearly, and the producers are like, what's happening? She's like, get my favourite blue, and she sends this woman to and from the vape shop 2-3 times. She's clearly confused about what's going on, and she's just getting more and more agitated. And I think the way that the professionals around her, well, I say professionals, her hired staff are responding is with equal kind of confusion, and I suppose to some extent agitation as well, which, you know, to some extent is understandable because they don't necessarily know what's going on, but at the same time, if somebody's so vulnerable that they need to be under a guardianship, why are they being left with people who don't understand their best interests or don't have an understanding of what their needs are? And then when she was taken to LA by her, I think it was the PR lady, that shouldn't have happened. When the producer asked her where she was like, I'm in Miami, and she wasn't in Miami, she was in LA. And there's just so many signs that she just wasn't okay, she wasn't functioning. I remember a clip where she's just in the bed and she's just sobbing, uncontrollably sobbing, covering her face, and it felt like a violation to be watching. It felt really, really sad to watch. In my mind, I was like, it feels illegal to be watching this. I don't know if I should be watching this. But what I'm hoping is, you know, towards the end, it seemed as though she was getting more of the contact with her family. She was in a wellness centre. She wasn't drinking. She was getting access to the support that she needs. And my hope is that she can be closer to her family, that people who genuinely care for her can begin making decisions for her and monitor her well-being and her care. I suppose also just I hope that whilst people are entertained by this documentary, that they're able to think a bit about what it means to live with dementia, to live with alcoholism and addiction, and to struggle with those things, to be grieving, to have numerous physical health difficulties, to adjust to life after a divorce. You know, these aren't, to not have control, to be under a guardianship. These are all really, really significant, massive life events and life-altering diagnoses, and it's exceptional that Wendy's been resilient enough to continue to get through this. And I really mean that. And I hope that people watching the documentary do a bit more research, learn a bit more about dementia. You know, I've given you like kind of dementia 101, if that, in this video, but I'm hoping that after watching this and after watching the documentary, if you choose to watch it, you just do a bit more reading, make sense of what dementia is, make sense of what those symptoms are. Have some empathy for people struggling with addiction, because it's not easy, right? Have an understanding about how physical and mental health can impact each other and what that can look like. I think it was reassuring to see her family cared, but I think sometimes if you think there's a worry there for somebody that you care about and that you love, help them access the support they need. And if it's you, help yourself to access the support that you need. I can put some links in the bio of this. I can put some links in the bio of this video, which is, which references support that people in the UK can access. If you're in another part of the world, speak to your general practitioner, your GP, or any healthcare professional to be signposted to the relevant support. Thank you so much for watching. It's quite a sad video. It's my first video on YouTube, but if you're interested in mental health, psychology, pop culture, how it all kind of comes together, stay tuned to my channel, hit subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content, and thank you so much for watching.